Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. Tonight, I have back Raymond Lee. He's bringing on a special guest, Dr. Wiedemann. And without further ado, let me bring Raymond to the stage. How you doing tonight, Raymond?
Good. How you doing, Floyd? I'm doing
I'm
good.
doing good. Yeah, it's another lovely day, churning and grinding. All right, you
Yeah.
ready to
So
bring the talk on?
yeah, you'll bring him on. Just Doc Wiedemann is a good friend of mine, and we thought we'd have him on the show, and he's going to talk about company called Longevity. But Doc Wiedemann also has a chiropractic background in the NUCA chiropractic, and he's going to go over some of that.
Okay,
But
basically,
he,
what is that? Basically,
well, the NUCA is
layman's
kind of like
terms.
a layman term. It's something that they do within the neck that
Okay.
gets adjusted, and it ties into everything in your body. But we'll let Doc, Wiedemann, he's a specialist in that, go over all that, and he's going to talk about the importance of getting the right type of minerals and vitamins. He's been with a company called Longevity for some time, and
Go
I
ahead and
know
do
I've been
your bio, Raymond, and I'm going to give you the
okay.
floor. And as soon as you get done, I'm going to bring him to the stage.
Okay. Well, his education is Muscatine Community College and Union College, Lincoln, Nebraska Palmer College of Chiropractic. He graduated that in 1977. And Dr. Wiedemann is also a licensed doctor of chiropractic, having passed national boards and has achieved license in the following states: Iowa, Tennessee, Washington, Montana, Wisconsin, New York, and practiced in most of all those states. Dr. Wiedemann was achieved board certification in NUCA techniques in 1993. And again, I'm going to let Doc Wiedemann tell more about the NUCA techniques. Dr. Wiedemann also served briefly at the Palmer Center for Chiropractic Research from 2009 to 2010. And he's also, like I said, a good friend of mine, honorable man, and we want to welcome Doc Wiedemann to the Fearless Ford Show. So,
Thank you, Raymond.
you're quite
Let me
welcome.
just clear up a few things. The town is named Muscatine. It's the only
Yeah,
town in the world
Muscatine.
named that. Muscatine,
Muscatine.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And I grew up on the banks of the Mississippi, the muddy Mississippi. My father invented the hot tub.
Oh, wow.
Yep, he invented the hot tub, and what happened was that it was not supposed to be a hot tub. It was supposed to be he called it the aqua plunge because he was going to use it with saunas and have people jump in the ice cold water after a sauna. And he said that a man from Pump Company would toured the factory, and the plans were on his desk as blueprints. And when that guy left, they were gone, he said. And that fall, they had the first hot tub using those plans in their catalog that fall. So it became the jacuzzi.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyway, so my dad was an inventor. He invented the fiberglass baptistry and church spire. He actually was one of the first to start using. He basically created the method of pulling molds off of fiberglass molds. He had to
Wow.
experiment, and I remember they destroyed the first one, basically trying to pull it off the mold. Didn't know how to do it, so he basically invented the method of they would spray the molds with a parting agent, and then they would gel coat, and then they would layer fiberglass over it. So that was his contribution to society, and I didn't follow in his footsteps. I became a chiropractor, and basically was, I believe it was divine guidance that led me into it. And I got interest in the upper cervical approach to chiropractic. Now, what is the upper cervical approach? Well, the upper cervical spine is unique and different from the rest of the spine. It is the only place in the spine where you can have a three-dimensionally torqued subluxation. Subluxation is a vertebra that has lost its proper juxtaposition relative to the segment above, the one below, or both, to a degree less than a dislocation, causing nerve impingement. And the unique aspect of the relationship of the head to the atlas vertebra to the lower cervical spine, that's the neck, it can produce a kink there that actually causes a tractionization of the brain stem. Now, I have, people question that. Well, I have dissected many upper cervical spines there at Palmer. I dissected upper cervical spines, and you can see the relationship between the spinal cord and the upper cervical spine is very, very close. And just a tiny bit of misalignment can cause encroachment on those nerve fibers, causing problems all over the body.
Is that part of the NUCA process, Doc? Is that what that is?
NUCA stands for National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association. Okay. And to give you an idea of how it started, Dr. B.J. Palmer became interested in upper cervical back in the 1920s. They were, the first chiropractic adjustment in history is believed to have been an upper cervical adjustment. Now, B.J. Palmer, the developer of chiropractic, was he was a very young man, a little boy actually, watching his father do the first adjustment. And there's several different versions of this story, how the first chiropractic adjustment took place. Okay. The first adjustment took place in 1895. D.D. Palmer was what was known as a magnetic healer. And if we were trying to compare it to what's done today, you might consider him a craniosacral therapist, So in his work with patients, now he was a student. He was continually studying the body, studying textbooks. He was a very brilliant man, actually. And so as he worked with patients, he noticed that there was a relationship between, like an organ that was diseased, and he could trace the pain back to the spine. And that's where nerve tracing was started. They used to teach nerve tracing. This is way back in the early days when they didn't have the modern methods of analysis that they have today. And so one day he was in his office, and he was sitting there, and he heard some noise outside, some laughter, real loud laughter, like a hard of hearing person would do. So he had a book in his hand. He put his fingers in the book, like you do, and carried it out with him. And outside was Harvey Lillard. Harvey Lillard had some deafness. Now, he wasn't completely stone deaf, or he couldn't have heard anything, but he was outside telling jokes to somebody else, and D.D. Palmer joined in with him. And of course, he was laughing, and he slapped Harvey on the back with his book. And Harvey turned to him and says, Dr. Palmer, for a minute there, I could hear better. And so he says, well, why don't you come in the office?
Doc, is it all right if I ask you a question real quick? Because we want to, on the show, we're trying to look for some solutions, if it's okay.
Well, if you let me finish this. Yeah, we'll get to that. I promise you.
Yeah, you're fine. The history's great.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with it is that he brought him in his office, and Harvey was kind of a slight fellow, and you could notice things on his neck that the average person you couldn't. And he saw a huge lump on the side of Harvey's neck. And as he examined him, he kind of winced a little bit, and he said, Harvey, he says, you've got a huge lump on the side of your neck. What happened? He says, well, about 17 years ago, he says, I was stooped over in a closet, and I felt something pop in my neck, and I turned around, and the hearing was gone. Or, I couldn't hear as well. And he couldn't hear the horses on the cobblestone street. And so Dr. Palmer asked him, he says, do you mind if I try to correct this? He says, I think what you've got is the second cervical vertebra has misaligned here. And it's misaligned really bad, and so he put him down on a bench and, just put a quick thrust into his neck, and it popped. back into place, and the lump was gone. And 3 days later, he came in. He says, he says, I can hear better. So Dr. Palmer tested him with a watch. They used to hold a watch at arm's length, and he could hear a hot watch ticking at arm's length, and he wasn't able to hear the horses on the cobblestone street before. So, and he wrote a letter to Dr. Palmer 6 months later stating that he could still hear. And that letter is on file in the Palmer Mansion today. And as his thoughts had unfolded, B.J. Palmer was his son, and he would write out his thoughts on paper and slip them into the wastebasket, and B.J. Palmer would save those. And that became the basis of chiropractic philosophy today. Of course, it was developed over time, but here's the basic philosophy. This is really important because, nutrition and things like this mean nothing if you don't understand this key point. And that is that there is a universal intelligence in all matter that continually gives to it all its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. That is that is known as the chiropractic premise, the major premise upon which chiropractic is built. That there is a universal intelligence in all matter that continually gives to it all its properties and actions, and that the principle number 2 is that the chiropractic meaning of life is the union of this intelligence with matter. What is life? It's basically the union of intelligence with matter, and there is an inborn, innate intelligence within us that tells our bodies what to do. And if it's not interfered with, so if you give the body all the nutrients that it needs and keep the body free of interference, the body doesn't need any help. It just needs, just no interference. And, I entered into practice. I became an upper cervical chiropractor. I practiced in Iowa. I practiced in Wisconsin and in Montana, and a little bit in New York. But when I was in Montana, I became acquainted with Dr. Joel Wallach. I listened to this tape called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And the guy that did my hair out there, he says, you got to get on the body toddy. You got to get on the body toddy. Over and over. And I, what's the body toddy? And then I listened to that tape, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And it made so much sense that I felt that it was like the missing link to what I was doing in chiropractic. And, we were trained in nutrition in chiropractic college. In fact, all chiropractors have education in nutrition along with their chiropractic studies. Medical doctors do not. So if you should not take any advice from a medical doctor on nutrition because they have no background for it in their schooling. We do. We have hours of nutritional education. And I'm glad I did because it gave me a huge background in understanding Dr. Wallach's message. And what we're involved in now is we have this website, this wonderful 90 for Life website that is an educational tool. It's called the Academy of Applied Epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is the chemistry that surrounds the genes. That's why it means epigenetic. It means above or around the genes. And what Dr. Joel Wallach's background is that he grew up on a farm and he went to college and his major was animal husbandry and his minor was in soil, crops, and fields. And so when he then went and became a veterinarian, he learned why his father was giving all these nutrients to all the cattle, but they didn't take them themselves. That bothered him. And so when he actually he had one of his professors was a comparative pathologist, and he had a class under him in pathology and learned to love comparing human versus animal pathology. And so he later on, Marlon Perkins was of Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, was the first one to give him his job. He had a job in Africa after he graduated from veterinary college or school, went down to Africa and worked with in the White Rhino Project with elephants and rhinos. And then he called him back because what happened was that somebody in Japan dumped a bunch of mercury into Minamata Bay. And what happened was that there were birth defects as a result of that. And then they discovered that somebody had dumped all that mercury in there, and they became very frightened in the whole world practically. And this was back in the 60s, where, the hippie movement, they were all involved in organic food and, and worried about pollution. And so pollution became the biggest concern. So the NIH funded a big, huge study that they would never do today on pollution. And in this 13-year study, Dr. Wallach did 17,000 autopsies on 456 species of animals and on 35 humans, and discovered that people that surrounded the zoos there, and found that it was not, pollution was not the key cause of diseases. It was actually the lack of nutrients. And he discovered from that study that everybody that dies, doesn't matter whether it's an alligator, a flamingo, or a hummingbird, or human, anybody that dies of natural causes dies of a nutritional deficiency. And so he discovered a book came out of that that's a very well-known book. It's called The Diseases of Exotic Animals, and I've found it going for up to $17,000 at one time on Amazon. I have a copy of the book, and basically he was the one that set all the normals for exotic animals, all the blood chemistries and things like that. He's the one that discovered them. And one of the other things that he discovered was that lost my train of thought here. One of the things he discovered was that it was not it was not pollution that was causing the problem. He discovered that there were 90 essential nutrients, 16 trace minerals, 12 essential amino acids, 16 vitamins, and 2 to 3 essential fatty acids. And if you have all of those nutrients in your system, the body will do wonderful things. And one of the things is that there is a location in southern Utah that he has exclusive rights to get plant-derived minerals. Now, the difference between there are 3 types of minerals. There are metallic minerals, and then there are chelated minerals, and then there are plant-derived minerals. What's the difference? Well, the metallic minerals can be harmful to you. First of all, you can't absorb them very well because they have a positive charge. But some of these, like mercury and arsenic and aluminum and lead can all be toxic to you if you take them in their base chemical state. And we all know that. You know that you shouldn't be having your kids eat lead paint or things like that. But these are all trace minerals that are necessary for the body. So how do we get things like lead and aluminum and things like that into our body in a state where our body can actually utilize them? Well, it has to be in plant-derived form. and or it can be in chelated form. Chelated, when you take the minerals in their metallic state, you might absorb about 8% of them, and so forth. In a chelated state, you'll absorb and utilize maybe 46% of them. And in plant-derived form, where they're in the soil and the plant brings them up into the plant and combines them with the biological function of the plant, they become consumables, and your body can absorb them. They actually have a negative charge. Well, these plants, this field that can be harvested down in southern Utah, are plant-derived. They are basically prehistoric hay at a time when the earth was rich in minerals, and these plants, these deciduous plants, had dropped their leaves for centuries and were covered up by a volcano. And they did not turn into coal. They didn't become coalified or petrified. They actually are a prehistoric hay, and it's called humic acid. And basically, what they do is they put these minerals into some big tanks, which they fill with reverse osmosis water, very pure water, and they let them steep at room temperature for a period of time, and then they filter out the solids, and they put these minerals into barrels, the liquid minerals into barrels, and ship them off to Longevity, and Longevity bottles them. And there's two forms of them. One is really concentrated and can be used in agriculture. The other is a little less dense, and it's used. They bottle that up for human use, and it's for human consumption. And you can take these minerals internally, or you can take them and spray them on your skin, and they will absorb into your skin. And it's amazing how it can actually reduce pain, by doing that. And so anyway, with that, that kind of gives you a picture, snapshot of what I do with this website. Now, Longevity is a company that was founded by Dr. Joel Wallach for the purpose of Dr. Wallach eventually, after this project, was hired by Yerkes Primate Center, which apparently deals with monkeys from NASA, I think, and the director of the zoo, that particular zoo, had left to go get some. They had some foxes that were having problems with birth defects, and they figured, well, we've got to get new gene pool. So the director left for, I think it was Alaska or someplace like that, to get some more Arctic foxes. And while he was gone, they brought Dr. Wallach some monkeys, some rhesus monkeys, a baby monkey, for instance, that had all the symptoms of cystic fibrosis. And Dr. Wallach had all the slides, and he sent the slides, pictures of the slides, off to 5 different hospitals, and said, there's an infant here that has died. I want to confirm the diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. And they all confirmed it on their letterhead that it was cystic fibrosis. And he found, by his investigation, that someone had made a mistake in the feeding of these monkeys, and somehow made them deficient in selenium. So he concluded from his study, this study, and he had a whole freezer full of these monkeys that had cystic fibrosis. And when the guy got back from, bringing back the foxes from the Arctic, he, showed his findings and said, Wallach, you can't say this. You can't say this, because if you do, I'm going to have to fire you. He says, well, here's my paper. Can't I defend my position? They said, no, we're going to have to fire you. So they fired him. His wife had just passed away from from cancer just a few weeks before that, leaving him with all these kids, and fired him from his position because of a discovery. Because the medical profession, they said we would have to rewrite all of our medical books and change our thinking. So he basically then Dr. Gerhard Schrauser at the University of Southern California had a life's work on studying selenium and the benefits of selenium for our bodies. And he invited him to speak to some of his colleagues, and was very well received. And he encouraged Dr. Wallach. And so Dr. Wallach became a naturopathic physician. The reason he became a naturopath was because if he became a medical doctor, he would have to follow the protocols that were enforced by the medical industrial complex, and he didn't want to do that. So he became a naturopathic physician, started practicing up in the Northwest, and then he started lecturing. And in his lectures, he was talking to some guy that said that, well, these medical doctors don't believe this. And he says, well, only medical doctors don't lie. And so that became the basis for the lecture, the famous lecture, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And that is actually depicted on our website page. When you enter your information in there, it actually is the lead video that you'll watch after you put your information in. And then what we do is we have people go to the section on introductory videos to Dr. Wallach, and just there's a lot of information there. So with that, do you have any questions for me?
That was a lot. Going all the way back to the history or historicity of chiropractic. All right, so how long did you crack backs? Let's start there.
Oh. Did I crack backs? Yeah, I'm still here.
How long did you crack backs? How long were you a practicing chiropractor?
Yeah, well, we don't call it cracking backs because I was an upper cervical doctor, so I didn't even mess with the lower spine except to measure it. Basically, we call it an adjustment. And here's the difference in NUCA with the regular chiropractors. And listen, I respect all chiropractors, but this is the difference. Okay, the term adjustment. What is the term adjustment? What do you think the definition for you? What is the definition to you? What is the term? If you're going to adjust something, what does that mean to you?
Basically, reset it. It's out of place.
Okay, it's out of place. Okay, so it has to have a right place, right?
You would assume, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to put a force in something where you're not putting it in the right place.
Right.
You see, there's a difference between the term manipulation and adjustment. Manipulation just means a skillful move. I could use a karate chop on your neck, and that would be a manipulation, but it wouldn't be an adjustment. So the term isn't enough for what we do,
Could be an attitude adjustment.
Pardon?
Could be an attitude adjustment.
Yeah, it'd be an attitude adjustment. That's right. And I've seen a few videos like that online, But anyway, there are 4 criteria for bringing about an adjustment. Okay. Mm-hmm. First of all, you have to have a knowledge of, you have to have a known normal. What is normal? Can you measure it? Well, in NUCA, we can. We've been measuring NUCA, measuring normal for quite some time. And if you want, I can give you some history behind that. Dr. B.J. Palmer was very much a researcher on the spine. If you go back in history, he actually brought the first X-rays into the he instituted the first X-ray machine. X-ray was discovered the same year as chiropractic, which I think was divine appointment. Alexander Wilhelm Röntgen discovered the X-ray in 1895. B.J. Palmer, the son of D.D. Palmer, brought X-ray into the Palmer College of Chiropractic in 1909 and took the first full spine X-rays to the 1910 World's Fair. In that day, they were glass, and it took an hour to take a full spine X-ray. They would bind them up in restraints and hold the patient in place for an hour while they had just an X-ray tube sitting out in the middle of the floor, exposing the plates. And they were glass. They would paint them with chemicals, and then they would take the X-ray, and then they would develop those X-ray. That's why they call them X-ray plates today. Okay, so it took about a half an hour to take a cervical spine picture because there's less mass to the cervical spine than there is the rest of the body. And so he started taking stereo pictures in about the 1920s and viewing the spine in 3 dimensions to actually view the spine in 3 dimensions. And there were several developments along the way with chiropractic. There was we used to, in the early days, chiropractors used to analyze the spine. Now, the first thing that they did when chiropractic was first discovered was they would try to adjust the entire spine. They would go from, sacrum, eyeballs to kneecaps practically and adjust everything. And the idea was that if there was a burglar in the house and you shot in every corner, you'd get the burglar. Well, that didn't work too well. So then they came up with what was called the Merrick system. And they, D.D. Palmer had done quite a bit of work figuring out what levels of the spine controlled various portions of the nerve, for the nerves. For instance, the 7th cervical vertebra controls your thyroid, and it also, portions of your throat and so forth. C6 is where your tonsils are supplied from, and so forth. So it was kind of cookbook style. If you had X disease, they would come in and adjust X level. Then they started really looking at the spine to see, can we determine where it's actually misaligned instead of just putting a force in there? And so then they started using taut and tender fibers, palpation. They would run their hands up the spine and feel for what they called hot boxes, because they figured it was hotter. If the nerve would get hot if it was misaligned in that area. Then after that, they developed something called the NCM, the neurocoulometer is what they called it. It was a device that had 2 prongs, and it had thermocouples, and it had a needle that would swing to the hot side as you ran it up the spine. And then as it developed, they found that you couldn't actually remember where that needle deviated. So they hooked it up to a strip chart, and then they had a screw post that would draw it up the spine at a certain rate of speed. And that's what I learned on was a neurocalligraph, the neurotempometer, and the neurocalligraph is what they called them. Just
yeah, I know, it went over my head. I know it went over everybody else's.
And what they found was now B.J. Palmer was looking for the specific, and he came to the conclusion that the upper cervical spine was where the interference was being caused, and there were several clinical reasons why he came to that conclusion. If you want to hear another big word, it's called the electroencephaloneuromentograph. That was a device that was to test the nerve impulses from the brain down to the body. It was very much like the electroencephalograph, only done on the full spine. And he had 3 ways of looking at it. He had a strip chart with pins on it, going back and forth, and like you would see in
What's a strip chart?
Pardon?
What's a strip chart?
A strip chart is where they roll paper down past the pins right on them, and you've seen pictures of that.
Graph, like the lie detector.
Yeah, lie detector. He was an expert on lie detectors also, by the way. In fact, he was never known to be wrong in his Yeah, he had several people that were convicted of murder it was reversed on his testing with the lie detector.
Wow.
So he
That's
was an expert
impressive.
on that. Yeah. And by the way, BJ was a brilliant man himself. He had the first TV station and first radio station west of the Mississippi River. He had WOC and Davenport, which stood for Wonders of Chiropractic. And then he purchased WHO in Des Moines, which stands for With Hands Only, which is still going today, but it's not under Palmer control anymore. But actually, Ronald Reagan, B.J. Palmer was his first boss.
Okay.
That's where he started broadcasting games, football games and stuff, which he was very good at. And so anyway, B.J. Palmer he was actually an electrical engineer, along with being, the developer of chiropractic. So he had a knowledge of electricity. So he came up with this electroencephaloneuron tempograph, and then he established the B.J. Palmer Clinic. He had a full medical staff doing medical testing, and of course he focused on the upper cervical spine because he felt that was where the interference was caused, and found that there were multiple ways it could misalign, and there was a relationship between the atlas and the brainstem, and I have seen it. I've seen it in I've held my hands a head and neck that was sliced in half, and you can actually see how the slight displacement of the atlas vertebra can affect the brainstem. Okay. So anyway, I interned for Dr. E.L.R. Crowder, who is a DC PhD, and he was the vice president of the college at the time. He was vice president of alumni, and I was privileged to intern with him for 3.5 years, and learned a lot of my skills of adjusting the upper cervical spine from him. And then later on, I became a NUCA practitioner because I felt that it was much more precise. One of the things that NUCA has done is they actually discovered the way to align an X-ray machine precisely, so that it eliminates distortion from the X-ray. And what they would do is clamp the atlas vertebra to the center of the film, and then measure the relationship of the head to the atlas and the neck to the atlas. And they found over 28,000 or 22,000 different ways it could misalign. And you cannot guess at it. You must visualize it. So in other words, it comes to the basis of this is that you have to know, first of all, what normal is. Okay. And of course, what they discovered was that the head has to be 90 degrees to the atlas, and the atlas have to be 90 degrees to the lower cervical spine, which makes sense. And they have to be all aligned properly. And just a fingernail width of laterality of the atlas, that's just a 3/4 of a degree of misalignment, can cause interference with the nervous system. And I've seen some pretty terrible problems taken care of by correcting that small, tiny misalignment. Now, I've seen huge misalignments too, but I mean, but you have to know what normal is. Then you have to have a way of measuring how it's departed from normal that's reliable. Then you have to have a mathematical, biomechanically sound method of correcting it. And then you have to verify the correction. That's why we take post X-rays, to verify the correction. And what they have found is you have to have 85% or better correction of the misalignment in all planes in order to expect results. Okay, so I for instance, I would, if I found that I was not getting the results I needed, I would shut the office down and I would tear into my X-ray machine and align it. It took me a week to do it, but I would get it back in alignment, and sure enough, the results came back. As soon as I realigned it, and of course, another thing that I want to state is that as I moved out to Montana and got in practice there and found Dr. Wallach, I found that nutrition was just as important as proper alignment of the spine. So, with that, do you have any questions?
Actually, I do. I know a lot of chiropractors for some reason. Bunch. A lot of them don't even do adjustments or manipulations or crackbacks, like Dr. Ed Group. I don't think he ever professionally had a clinic. He got into, I got him into supplements. And then after that, he was, like you said, he's learning more about nutrition, health, well-being, those types of things. And he loved it. He couldn't stop talking about it. It wasn't about doing the adjustments, which normal chiropractors would, they want as much of that practice as they could get. His deal was, just talking all this knowledge, and we're like, yeah, we don't care about all that. You want a beer, you want a line, that kind of thing. So it's real odd how things go. But on the chiropractic, there's a local chiropractor here in Houston that does the bell ringer. Have you heard of him? And I forget the specific procedure that he does, but where they have your hips bent and they adjust you. You familiar with that?
I have not really familiar with that at all. I haven't heard of that. There's thousands of techniques. There's many techniques in chiropractic, and there's even several upper cervical approaches because, for instance, my mentor, Dr. Ralph Gregory, Dr. John Grostic was probably one of my basic mentors. Now, he passed away before I knew him, but, you can be a mentor without knowing the person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Grostic had Hodgkin's disease, and he went to the B.J. Palmer Clinic, and he got diagnosed by the medical team and then analyzed by the chiropractic team, and Dr. Palmer adjusted him, x-rayed him and adjusted him, and he went into remission, and he became a student as a result of that. Well, he got out into practice and bumped his head on the x-ray machine and couldn't find anybody out there in Michigan to adjust him. So he went back to Dr. Palmer and had him x-ray him again and adjust him. And he watched him and he figured out, I can come up with a method of analyzing this so anybody can analyze it, because BJ was kind of the guy to go to in a problem case. And so he developed the orthogonal analysis, and from watching Dr. Palmer. And then there was another man by the name of Ralph Gregory, who had been a machinist at the American Brass Company, and got a piece of brass in his finger, and the wound wouldn't heal. So a fellow said, well, why don't you go to this upper cervical chiropractor over here and get adjusted? He says, why? And the guy told him, he says, well, just go. So he did, and he got adjusted, and the finger got well. So he could feel immediate difference. And so he got interested in chiropractic, went to Palmer, and practiced in Michigan, not far from Dr. Grostic. And the two of them together really developed this technique. Dr. Gregory and Dr. Grostic, as they work together, Dr. Grostic says, well, what should we call this technique? Should we call it the Gregory Grostic technique? And Dr. Gregory says, I don't want my name attached to a technique. And so he got up in class. Dr. Grostic got up in class, he says, this will now be called the Grostic technique. So it got called the Grostic technique to begin with. Well, when Dr. Grostic passed away, the group kind of split up. And so Dr. Gregory was asked to start teaching again. And he founded the National Upper Cervical Chiropractic Association because he didn't want it to be named after an individual, because he felt the work would die when he died. And on many times when a mentor names his technique, then the technique goes away after he dies, So and NUCA has become stronger and stronger over the years. Just many very intelligent men coming in and researching the upper cervical spine in this manner, and believe me, there's some real benefits to having the upper cervical spine corrected in the proper manner. So if anybody wants to have that approach, just have them get in touch with me, and I can get them to a NUCA doctor. I can recommend someone in their area for them. And listen, if you're 4 hours away from a NUCA doctor, you're lucky, because there are many people that have nobody in the state. There are some states without NUCA doctors. While it's growing, it's still, most of the NUCA doctors congregate around places like Chicago and the West Coast and the Northwest and places like that. And there's a couple up in Minnesota and in Michigan, and there's a really good one in Indianapolis, Indiana. So you're lucky if you're close enough to be in. Pardon?
How about Houston?
There's one in Houston. I believe there is one in Houston. So I'd have to look.
Send me that information. I'll go check them out. Like I said, I usually go to a chiropractor once a week, and none of them are taken before and after X-rays. Zero.
Yeah. Well, it may not the style of adjusting that they're doing now. If you're adjusting in the lower spine, there are articulations there that guide the vertebra into place, so you don't have to be as precise. But by the same token, why not adjust in an area that's going to correct everything? Because the hips will balance out. The hips can be imbalanced, and they'll balance right out. Because see, there's two centers in the brainstem that control and regulate the tone of the extensor muscles of the spine. In fact, they actually have an influence over the entire body. I can see it in somebody's face. I can tell by looking at someone's face if they're misaligned, in what way they're misaligned, kind of, just from because it will affect muscle tone in the face as well. And there are NUCA doctors that work closely with dentists that are experts on TMJ, because an atlas subluxation will actually misalign the jaw because of the tension on the muscles. You cannot have good posture if you're out of alignment it's the relationship of the head with the atlas, with the lower cervical spine, that causes that imbalance. There are two centers, facilitatory and inhibitory, in the brainstem that control and regulate the tone of the muscles in the low back, the extensor muscles. Now there's two sets on the front, two sets on the back, and what happens is that I'm going to give you an analogy. If you were sitting on a yard swing, or a swing set, and one of those chains was shorter on one side, what would happen to your spine as you sat there?
Oh, eventually going to get in a line.
It would look out of a line right there, just sitting there.
Sure.
But if you lengthen that chain, it will balance the spine out. Right. Well, that's kind of what happens to the extensor muscles. It will actually draw a leg short. Up to 2. I've seen up to 2 inches short. And I've always felt that the shorter your leg is compared to the other one, the closer you are to death, because of the adverse influence on the brainstem. And let's face it, it's like a space-occupying lesion. If you had a tumor on the brainstem, what would you do? Would you leave it go, or go to the doctor and have it taken care of?
Yeah, do what we can to get rid of it.
Yeah, well, if you have an atlas subluxation in there, you better go have it taken care of, because it's going to adversely affect your life. And what happens is that people chase symptoms. Instead of looking at causes, they will chase symptoms. And so anyway, that's So I'm not divided on, whether I use nutrition or whether I use or whether I want proper alignment. I think both are necessary, and both have positive effects on your body. And there are many situations. I think of one case that came in 1995. He had been in an industrial accident, hurt his back, and he was in pain for months. And the hospital was making all kinds of money off of him, sending him to work hardening that had absolutely no positive effect on him whatsoever.
Aimed to what?
Work hardening.
What is that? Work hardening.
Work hardening is the idea. If you have pain, you can learn how to work through it.
Oh,
so they would put him in a clinic where, and then listen, they were making money off of this hand over fist. People with back pain, pushing carts, lifting things, learning how to work through their pain, and with no relief. And he would meet daily with this group of physical therapists and surgeons, and they all sit there and psychologists and trying to teach him how to live with his pain. Well, he came into my office and we measured him on the anatometer, and he had his hips were crooked as heck, and he was leaning to the side, and his hips were twisted. One adjustment got everything straightened out, and tremendous pain relief, and never had to be adjusted again. And so his wife videoed all this, and we took it into his group. I appeared with him, and we said, and he was on workman's comp, see. And we asked him, do you want to work with us? And they said, no, we don't want to work with a chiropractor, Right. And I said, you don't understand. In the state of Wisconsin, he has already fired you. And he has the right to do that under workman's comp laws in the state of Wisconsin. And they said, we want to know if you want to work with us, if you want to stay on the team or not. Oh, yeah, certainly we'll do that. He never had to be adjusted again. And, never, as long as I took care of him, never lost that adjustment. And, now that's a beautiful thing when you can correct a misalignment in the neck and untwist the entire spine and bring about that pain relief. It's an amazing thing. Yeah. So those of you that would like to have information on the nutrition we do and on the chiropractic care we give, go to www.getdocsminerals.com. That's GETDOCSMINERALS.com. And my number is 406.
I'll have all that.
270-3754.
Repeat that again.
Pardon?
Repeat all that again now that everybody has a pen.
Yeah. Okay. It's getdocsminerals.com. GETDOCSMINERALS.com. And my number is 406-270-3754.
And you have hours and days that you like to receive and not receive calls?
I'll have voicemail on if it's not at a time. The voicemail will tell them when my hours are. So
okay.
And you can go to that website anytime and listen to Dr. Wallach, and then we'll get in touch with you. And once you contact us, and we'll try to help you out. Awesome.
Man, it sounds like a plan to me. Let me get Raymond's been popping in and out backstage. He has Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know. I see. Yeah. He's been having lots of trouble, and he's been under attack. Apparently. So, anyway,
join the club. Yeah, when they hit you on all fronts.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they'll disable one of my apps and start messing with my Wi-Fi, and then I got two things going on at one time, and drive you nuts. You have to sit back and go, oh man, they got me again.
Yeah. So you have my phone number here, don't you?
I do.
Did you write it down? Okay.
I do. Yeah.
So give me a call sometime and we'll chat. And
absolutely.
if you want to get lined up with improving your health somehow, let me know. And be glad to help anybody else that wants to be helped. And so I have a show myself. It's on Monday nights. It's on a different radio station. I don't know if you want me to mention that or not, but
yeah, I don't care.
it's on Hamilton One Radio on Monday nights. It's called Wellness Revolution, and we've had people come on there and absolutely love our presentations. There are people that won't miss one because they've learned something every single time. So I hope I've been a blessing to everybody here. So
all it's about education, learning, and try to stay as long as live as possible, and healthy, wealthy, and wise. You know how that goes.
Yeah, that's right.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. Well, Raymond, we missed you here. We don't know how much you heard, but
you have anything to add before we close out the show, Raymond? Questions, analogies, anecdotes, puns?
Well, Raymond, what's your takeaway from what we talked about tonight? I don't know if Raymond is.
Well, I'm just
lagging.
New that you're talking about. That you referred up there in Washington to the Nuka up there. It helped her tremendously.
Oh yeah.
He got her back in. Because I was their chauffeur. I drove her up there many times, but she went, I think, about 3 months, and one leg was shorter than the other. When he got about a couple months, it took her pain away, and I was fascinated by myself.
Did you get to watch?
Just pushed on. Yeah, I was in there. I actually met him. Of course, it's sad, but the doctor that was up there, he's dead now. He just passed over dead. We don't know.
Yeah, and
it's kind of strange.
I sit here and wonder if it might have been a nutritional deficiency that caused the problem. Could have been a cardiomyopathy heart attack, which is a nutritional problem. So
and I can say that firsthand witness to. I never even heard of the word before, or even time of a doc. But I know, with my problems, I'm in the process of seeking one myself. And of course, I don't think docs come and travel to Florida to adjust me, but who's going to be out there before we know it? They get some adjustments. So
yeah, we'll find somebody.
It works. It really does.
Yeah, it does.
And I did some research too on the company. I thought it fascinating where the minerals come from is very fascinating. Doesn't he have a patent right on all those minerals, Doc?
Yep, he's got exclusives on it. Yes, it's all very exclusive and exclusive rights under contract and everything else. So, yeah.
Now I do have another question to ask you real quick. Do you think that somehow that those would really, how do I say it?
You're breaking up really bad, Raymond.
Now?
Yeah, Raymond,
is that better?
You're breaking up. Yeah, you're breaking up really bad. So what I would like to have you do, Raymond, is, I always like to see what you have. Since we're at the end of the show, I'd like to have you just kind of give a takeaway on what your thoughts are, and then have Fearless Floyd give a takeaway on one of his. Floyd, what is your takeaway on what we covered tonight?
It's like with anything, I use logic and reason, and I do my own research. I don't.
Am I broken up? I sound better now.
A little better. You were really good when you were in your car the other night. That was clear as a bell.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know where your Wi-Fi is, because that's obviously where you're using your Wi-Fi, right? Or using your phone 5G.
Correct. Yeah.
Wi-Fi or 5G? He's probably using Wi-Fi. And he's buffering real bad. He's actually frozen now. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out and get into it. You know, I'm all about adjustments. Like I said, most of my friends are chiropractors that don't even do adjustments. They do other things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the dean of philosophy, Dr. Galen Price, used to say, he says, when you get out and practice, he says, when you decide to heat them up or cool them down or ultraviolet them, he says, don't forget to adjust them.
Right.
Because that's the basis of chiropractic. You know, chiropractic is defined as a philosophy, science, and art of things natural, a system of adjusting the segments of the spinal column for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. And of course, you know, that doesn't mean just adjusting. It means things natural. You know, so chiropractors were to utilize natural approaches to life. Not necessarily in practice, but in life. You know, you want to use everything natural, and certainly don't want to do things unnatural in practice. You know, so we promote a natural lifestyle along with the principles of chiropractic. And of course, our show, I intertwine the principles of chiropractic into everything I do, in nutrition or otherwise. The philosophy of chiropractic is the basis for all that we do, for everything I stand for and everything I do. So that's called being a principled chiropractor. So
sounds good. Raymond, are you live? Or are you just frozen in eternity? Yeah, he's frozen. Poor Raymond.
Yeah, I wish he could have said more. So
yeah, well, I'll have to get him hooked up. He probably needs a Wi-Fi extender. Like I said, I don't know what his hookup looks like, so I'll talk to him after the show and get all that figured out.
He needs a fiber optic connection of some kind.
I don't know where he's at. I don't know what he has and all that. So yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. All right. Well, I'll definitely have you back on the show. I'll definitely dive deeper into the website and everything like that. And I want to thank you for coming on. I love talking to doctors and scientists and biologists, all of that. And I do all the time. So thank you for being here, and definitely we'll have you back.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and like to say good night to you all. And thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Yep. We'll get you back on, Doc. Have a good night. Okay. There you go. Doc Wiedemann. GetDocsMinerals.com is the website. I'll have his phone number, the website, all down in the description below for this video. Thank you for watching, everybody. If there's an outro, stay tuned for that. If not, be sure and like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. If you need to reach me, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. FearlessFloydShow.com is my website. You need to trust class, trust book. Come hit me up over there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Good night.